You've been told that self-awareness is the key, that if you just understand yourself deeply enough, you'll finally break free. But here's the problem nobody talks about. Self-awareness doesn't just expose your issues. In many cases, it creates them. Psychologists call this the self-absorption paradox. There are two kinds of self-awareness. Reflective awareness pushes you forward. Ruminative awareness keeps you spinning in circles, and most people, without realizing it, default to rumination. You're not examining yourself to find solutions. You're examining yourself because your brain has turned self-criticism into a habit. You've picked apart your flaws more carefully than anyone ever could. You know exactly why you procrastinate, why you avoid, why you struggle, and somehow, knowing all of that hasn't changed a single thing. That's not a lack of effort. That's the trap doing exactly what it was built to do. Self-awareness isn't the cure. For a lot of people, it's the disease, just wearing a lab coat. Chapter 1. The Rumination Machine. Your brain treats overthinking like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets at finding new things to spiral about. Rumination isn't just a bad habit, it's neurologically addictive. Every time you replay an old conversation or mentally rehearse a future failure, you're reinforcing neural pathways. You're literally training your brain to hunt for problems that don't exist. And here's the cruel part. Rumination feels like progress. It feels like you're doing the work, digging deep, figuring yourself out, but you're not solving anything. You're rehearsing anxiety on repeat. The cost is real. Every hour you spend dissecting something awkward you said 3 years ago is an hour your brain can't spend on actual problem solving. It compounds fast. Self-awareness triggers overthinking. Overthinking creates anxiety. Anxiety pulls your focus back inward, and the loop has no exit sign. You keep thinking that one more round of analysis will finally bring relief. It never does. But you go back anyway. That's not weakness. That's just how the wiring works. Chapter 2. The Introspection Illusion. Here's something uncomfortable. You don't actually know why you do the things you do, and the certainty you feel about your own motivations is almost never as accurate as it feels. This is the introspection illusion. Your brain makes a decision first. Then it builds a reason afterward. You turned down that invitation and told yourself you were exhausted. But an hour later, you were wide awake watching a show you'd already seen twice. You started an argument and framed it as standing your ground. But really, you were anxious about something completely unrelated and needed somewhere to put it. We're not reporters of our own minds. We're defense attorneys. We build the case after the verdict is already in. We find evidence that confirms what we already believe about ourselves and quietly ignore everything that doesn't fit. So when you spend hours trying to understand why you self-sabotage, you're not uncovering some deep truth. You're writing fiction about your own psychology. The honest answer to, "Why did I do that?" is almost always, "I'm not really sure." And pretending otherwise is exactly where the trap starts. Chapter 3. Solomon's Curse. You've lived this pattern. A friend brings you a problem. Within minutes, you can see exactly what's going on. You give them clear, practical advice. Then you go home and completely fall apart dealing with your own version of the same problem. This is Solomon's paradox, named after the king who was famously wise for everyone around him, but made a disaster of his own life. Self-awareness collapses under personal pressure. When the stakes belong to someone else, your thinking is sharp. When they belong to you, emotions flood in and distort everything. You're not less capable when it comes to your own problems. You're just too close to see them clearly. The next time you're stuck on a personal decision, ask yourself what advice you'd give a close friend in that exact situation, then actually follow it. Your self-awareness becomes a roadblock precisely when you need it most. The fix isn't more introspection, it's distance. Chapter 4. The Expertise Paradox. Here's something that catches almost everyone off guard. The more skilled you become at something, the less confident you feel about it. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect running in reverse. Beginners walk in with maximum confidence because they have no idea how much they're missing. Experts carry the least confidence because they can see every gap, every flaw, every place they still fall short. There's a valley in between, a crushing stretch where growing skill makes success feel further away than ever. Most people quit right there, not because they're failing, because self-awareness made the finish line look impossible. Your imposter syndrome isn't irrational. It's actually evidence of real growth. You've moved from comfortable ignorance into informed uncertainty. That doesn't feel like progress. It feels like fraud. But the people who seem effortlessly sure of themselves, they're either still at the top of the ignorance curve, or they've simply learned to act confident while feeling just as uncertain as you. Competence and confidence are not the same thing. Chapter 5. The Spotlight. Lie, that embarrassing moment you keep replaying? Nobody else remembers it. This is the spotlight effect. You're convinced everyone around you noticed your stumble, your off comment, your visible anxiety. In reality, they were too absorbed in their own inner world to register yours. You assume your internal state is visible from the outside, that your nervousness shows, that your confusion is obvious. It almost never is. People overestimate how much others notice them by 2 or 3 times the actual amount. You're the lead in a film that nobody else is watching. That's actually a freeing idea, if you let yourself sit with it. The audience you've been performing for doesn't really exist. The judgment you've been bracing for is something you projected outward, not something people are actually directing at you. The more self-conscious you are, the more you assume others share that focus. They don't. Chapter 6. The Paralysis. Protocol: more information was supposed to make things easier. You'd look at your options, think it through carefully, and land on the right answer. Instead, you've researched so thoroughly that you can't move at all. Self-awareness gives you more data about your values, your fears, your likely regrets, your possible outcomes. But more data doesn't produce better decisions. It produces more paralysis. You've looked at your options so carefully that committing to any of them feels reckless. Every choice has a visible downside. Nothing survives full scrutiny. Studies actually show that major decisions made with less deliberation often turn out better. Not because thinking is bad, because overthinking is worse. When you overanalyze, you're using the wrong tool for the job. The way out is simple. Put a time limit on it. Give yourself a deadline that forces a decision before the analysis is complete. Constraints sharpen thinking. Perfect information doesn't exist. Waiting for it isn't careful. It's just avoidance dressed up in responsible-sounding clothes. Chapter 7. The Perfectionism. Prison self-awareness shows you the distance between who you are right now and who you think you ought to be. And that gap never actually closes. It just gets more detailed. This is the perfectionism paradox. A clearer picture of the ideal creates a more painful relationship with the real. You don't just have high standards. You've built a surveillance system that runs constantly and never misses a violation. Hyper-awareness of your own values creates suffocating guilt every time you fall short. And you always fall short. The internal critic logs another failure. Self-criticism was designed to push you forward. Instead, it keeps you frozen. You stop attempting things because you already know the outcome won't meet the bar. Your standards aren't proof of ambition. They're self-attack wearing the costume of motivation. The exit isn't to lower what you expect of yourself. It's to learn how to keep moving even when the gap is still there. Chapter 8. The Identity. Maze. The deeper you dig into yourself, the less clear the picture becomes. You laugh at your boss's joke and immediately wonder if you're being fake. You're calm and generous with a stranger, then snap at someone you love and wonder which one is actually you. You write something, post it, delete it, post it again, because you can't tell if it sounds like you or like a version of you that you're performing for someone else. Once you start watching yourself, you can't stop. You used to just act. Now you act, then observe yourself acting, then evaluate the observation. 3 layers deep before you've even finished a thought. And every layer adds another coat of doubt. Am I actually an introvert, or did I just decide that about myself years ago and never questioned it? Do I genuinely enjoy this, or do I like being the kind of person who enjoys this? The search for your real self turns into a hall of mirrors. Every answer opens a new question. But identity isn't something you locate through reflection. It's something you build through repetition. You become what you consistently do. Stop trying to figure out who you are. Start deciding who you're going to be. Chapter 9. The Flow Escape. There's a state where self-awareness completely disappears. And paradoxically, that's when you do your best work. It's called flow. Total immersion in what you're doing. Time bends. Self-consciousness drops away. Action and awareness merge into one thing. The part of your brain responsible for self-monitoring goes quiet. The inner critic finally takes a break, and you get to work without interruption for the first time in a long time. Flow has specific conditions: clear goals, immediate feedback, A challenge that matches your skill level closely enough to keep you engaged. When those things line up, self-awareness becomes irrelevant. The task takes everything. This is the opposite of introspection. Not thinking about your thinking, just doing. Athletes, surgeons, musicians, they all describe peak performance as something that happened beyond conscious control. You can't force flow, but you can set the conditions. Remove distractions. Define a clear metric. Match the difficulty to your level. The goal isn't relentless self-awareness. It's strategic self-forgetfulness. Chapter 10. The Acceptance Alternative. This is where everything lands. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. You cannot analyze your way out of analysis paralysis. The same tool that built the trap cannot dismantle it. The alternative is acceptance-based living. Not giving up, but honestly acknowledging that you will never fully understand yourself. And that's completely fine. Perfect self-knowledge isn't possible. Chasing it is the trap itself. You cannot see your own blind spots by definition. Your introspection is frequently wrong. Treating your self-perception as objective truth is the foundational mistake. Use self-awareness deliberately. Reflect when it serves something real. Step back when it turns into rumination. Learn to notice the difference. And then actually choose. Some things don't need to be understood. They need to be done. Action produces clarity that analysis never will. The goal isn't to stop being self-aware. It's to stop being held captive by it. Stop trying to understand yourself perfectly. Start living, imperfectly, anyway. So here's what all of this comes down to. Self-awareness is a tool, and like any tool, it does damage when you use it wrong. The rumination, the paralysis, the perfectionism, the identity spirals, they all share the same root. Too much inward focus, applied without direction or limit. The shift isn't dramatic. You don't need to stop reflecting. You need to reflect with intention and then step back out. Engage with yourself when it moves you forward. Disengage when it's just keeping you spinning. Pick one thing from everything we covered today, the one that made you pause, the one you recognized immediately. That's where you start. One pattern. One shift. That's enough. If this gave you something to think about, hit the like button and pass it along to someone who needs it. Subscribe for more and drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know which one hit closest to home.